Hey guys, we just landed here in Seattle, Washington, our beautiful North Point, Washington facility. First of all, we just want to say thanks for joining us on this journey. Anything you want to say real quick, Big John?
Appreciate the support, and we got a lot of great episodes coming your way, so be sure to check them out, show us some love on all the different media platforms, YouTube, podcasts, all that good stuff.
Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes.
Absolutely.
Next few episodes are going to be showcasing our amazing North Point, Washington staff, as well as some of the alumni that have graduated from this facility, as well as North Point, Idaho, that live in the Washington State area.
Yeah, it's going to be a real good time,
guys. Welcome to No Way But North, where we talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them. My name is Cooper Lyons. My clean date is November 27th, 2010. And as always,
I got a bloody nose again.
I'm joined by Big John Meldrum, who is not bleeding.
Not bleeding.
Thank God.
Just a little.
You feeling all right?
Yeah, man. I'm
Are you
like
sure?
it's just like a little, little.
You're fighting off a cold. I know that.
I wouldn't even say I'm fighting a cold. It's just like I don't feel tip top.
All right. Well,
Not like
you
bad.
look tip top.
Oh. You got anything in my beard?
Just your hand.
No, just his hand. Yeah,
I see what you did there.
just your face.
Oh man, things are good, man. We're cranking through these.
Still happy to be here up in Washington.
Still happy to be here. I thought doing this many episodes, though we are getting a little loopy, a little delusional. No, just kidding. I thought doing this many episodes was going to be like really hard, but it's been like actually.
Yeah, once we get started, I think in between episodes I get a little like lull. I'm like, whew, it's been a long day. But then once we get started, just happy to have people here and learn more about them. And honestly, it's been really cool to get to know our Washington staff and Washington.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Well, it's because like we don't. I feel like we have this like healthy competition between like Washington and Idaho. It's like, oh well, North Point, Idaho did this, and they're like, well, Edmond's 44-bed facility, and I'm like, well. But
good comeback.
No, yeah, but no, it's cool because we hear names. We hear names like Darren running the outpatient and Dan Labuda and all these other people, and so it's nice to be able to kind of get to know them a little bit more on a personal level and hear their stories that. Like I really appreciate that with the staff and the staff that we've been able to do a couple of episodes with, like Darren today.
Yep.
We get to hear their story, get to know who they are, and then we get to have a clinical episode. So
yeah,
it's cool stuff.
Speaking of which, Darren, we're glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Darren runs our outpatient. You run Northgate, correct?
Nope, Bellevue.
Bellevue.
Sorry, my bad.
The OG in Washington.
Yes.
You are. I think you were like one of the first counselor that we hired up here, right?
I'm not sure.
You were very early in Washington.
I was very early.
You've been you're the last standing of the original team, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yep. I think there was 20 people, 20 clients or 18.
Yeah.
Because you got hired with Tom, right?
No, but Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, they hired me to. I actually previously tried stealing Dan from a previous place to come help me where I was at previously.
Yep.
Almost had him, and then he came to you guys, and then
things
didn't work. Yeah, and then he stole me. So. A ton of respect for Dan. So
Dan's great job.
Dan's awesome. So real quick, how long have you been working in addiction treatment, and what's your clean date?
My clean date's 5/19-ish of 2003. I'll get into the ish part when I tell my story, but and I've been in the field since 2012, I think. So about 7 years.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. So we're going to get in your quote, and this is, it's a classic. It's kind of hard to beat this one. It is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm curious why you decided to choose this one. Fall 7 times, stand up 8, which is a Chinese proverb. Why was that kind of the quote that you think resonated with your story?
Somewhat honestly, because I was looking through my book of quotes, and it stood out. There were some in there that I liked that they were just way too long. But I think because I've had so many times in my life where I just thought I was done, and this was the last, but also because we beat ourselves up. I beat myself up for the small failures or for every time that I fell down, instead of looking at how many times I got up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I like that perspective. It's really, I think that one's really easy to just just keep going, get up every time you fail. But, I think it's important to remember that as we're going forward, right? I've fallen down 8 times or 7 times. I've gotten up 8, and I'm probably going to fall down 2,864 more times, and I have to get up 2,865 more times.
Whoa! I was going to hold you to that.
It was four.
I was like, you're throwing out a real big number. You're going to be able to follow that?
That was a 4-digit number. It was pretty good.
I rehearsed that.
Did you?
Probably his old locker combo.
You know too much, Darren. John, I know it's a pretty self-explanatory quote, but you got anything you want to add? Oh, he makes me read it twice. Fall 7 times, stand up 8.
No. I just hear stuff like that, and it's just like, I've heard patients and heard meetings where they say, I have another relapse, but I don't have another recovery in me. Yeah. And so it's just like one of those things of like, yes, you do, and yes, you can. You just need to
do it. Stand up again.
Everybody loves a good comeback story.
100%.
Seabiscuit, Rocky, everybody, Everybody can do it.
Yep. All right. Well, Darren, we really appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday and your day off to be here with microphones and cameras and lights in your face.
And he just got back from a trip, too.
Yeah, I did.
Are you still a jet lagged?
No, I had my first full day of rest yesterday because I came back and I went right to work after a 15-hour flight. So.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
how was Germany?
It was incredible.
I was born in Germany.
Were you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I didn't like you.
Yeah. That's aggressive.
Was that your first time going to Germany?
Yeah. Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I went to Prague. Prague's incredible.
Was it just a vacation, just exploring, just hanging out?
Yeah, exploring my lineage and just seeing the world. It's a big rock we live on.
It is a big rock.
I never used to get out of the county unless I was on a dope run. So
I like it.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, cool. And hopefully we wish you the best with your luggage.
Yeah, my luggage is still on vacation. It liked Germany more than I did. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's hence the growth.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
so
I never got it.
All your clothes and everything?
I lived my entire vacation out of a duffel bag, my carry-on.
Gosh, at least you still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought you were just growing the beard to fit in.
So did it not make it over there?
It made it over there somewhere. They just didn't know where. And then
did they find it?
Yeah, they found it at one point, and
now they lost it again.
Yeah, they lost it again. So I may have my own Facebook or YouTube channel and grow a beard in protest of waiting for my luggage. So we'll see.
I like it.
Wow.
Well, we wish you luck with that.
Thanks. I'd be so mad.
So I don't know if you've watched episodes before, but we're kind of just want to hear your story, kind of where you started, what happened, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Mm-hmm. So just kind of starting with childhood, what was it like growing up? I know you had a pretty traumatic childhood. Mm-hmm. So whatever you're willing to share with us, we're happy to hear it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm an open book. So I was born, I don't know what I was born, but I grew up a welfare kid. I was one of, I think, 8 welfare kids in a middle to upper class school. It was a really weird situation where I grew up in tenement housing and was surrounded by beachfront condos. It was a really weird placement for housing, but I used to go to school. I always felt like everybody else had this handbook that I didn't have. Or there was a class where they gave out a bunch of life information that I missed out on or something because I used to go to school. And people would talk about going to the mall, and I thought that was just the name of a store. And so when I would get my layaway white Britannica painter pants that would show up 6 months after they were no longer cool, they were like, "Where'd you get those?" And I'd be like, "The mall." And they're like, "Where at the mall?" "The boys section." No idea. But I grew up. I grew up in a house that was somewhat chaotic. A mom with a substance use problem and mental health stuff going on. I grew up. I feel like I was an addict from the gate, but I was a full-blown addict in grade school.
Oh wow! Okay.
My first drug of choice was rubber cement. There's no cool way of saying that. You just got to throw it out there, right?
You were a glue eater?
Yeah, essentially my 4th grade teacher was my first drug dealer, so she just didn't know it. But I would huff rubber cement in the back of the classroom all day long until I was dumping it all over my shoes, and then after school I would go huff gas in a closed room until I would pass out or hallucinate, or both.
Wow. And so how old were you?
I was 9 or 10. And I remember for the first time feeling like I was a slave to something, and that something was battling for my soul almost.
Wow. Well, with something like that, how did you know? Like, if I sniff rubber cement,
Yeah,
this is going to.
Well, I just had a buddy. So growing up in housing, right? Drugs, stealing, and fighting are the norm. I was burglarizing houses at 10 years old. I was selling drugs by 12, and I just had just an older friend who would mention something. I had already tried alcohol and all that stuff. I remember my first spiritual experience was the first time I had a drink. The way that I thought and felt about the world and the way that I fit into that all changed the first time I had a drink. And so drinking was any chance I could get it. Some of my stealing involved stealing alcohol in my burglarizing houses and stuff.
Yep.
And my mom was suicidal growing up. She tried killing herself in front of me when I was 10 or 11. And there were times where I would have to save her from herself, kind of a thing. Never knowing what mood she was in, how she was doing. I would have friends wait at the door.
Before you brought him inside.
Before I brought him inside, where I would go in and check and make sure she wasn't like laying on the floor or on the couch, or if I had to like take her to her room or something. And
so you were pretty much taking care of yourself
to an extent. And my younger
old.
sisters, I was kind of babysitting them. And I used to crawl out my window at night, like 9 p.m., and just run the streets in the dark by myself.
And in Seattle, correct?
Yeah.
You grew up in Seattle.
Yeah. Well, in Seattle area, the east side. But so a lot of that. Grade school, getting into junior high, my drug use became more frequent. I probably was drinking 2 or 3 times a week, smoking weed every day. I had started doing cocaine in the summer between 6th grade and 7th grade. And again, that's something that grabbed me very quickly. Yep. Fortunately, as a poor kid, it was harder to come by, and it wasn't huge in my neighborhood. So I didn't.
Was this just living in that area, just experiencing other people using, and just
my
social norm?
Yeah, my view of my options in life was that I was going to become a thief, a drug dealer, or the guy who works his ass off all the time, drinks, and beats his family, right? Because that's all I saw going on around me, and I thought those were my options, So I went through junior high. I think in junior high, I probably went to 6 funerals of friends, substance related.
Other kids in junior high.
Yep. Yeah,
Wow.
other junior high kids,
Okay.
either from car wrecks or drug overdoses, suicide. And by the end of junior high, I was pretty full-blown addict. I was doing interstate drug things where we would take drugs to other states and kind of pay our way by selling the drugs and all that kind of stuff. I was already kind of in a position where I would leave for school Friday morning and say, "Mom, I'll see you Monday, maybe," and that was just kind of how it was. And high school, I probably went to 12, maybe like 15 funerals.
That is a lot.
Yeah, the first time I tried recovery was in high school. I went to alternative high school because I couldn't cut it. I think I got kicked out of regular high school my first quarter and told if I came back they would call the police. I had a lot of violence. I did a lot of fighting and stuff growing up. Again, it was the norm. It was a make your way. It was a prove yourself kind of a thing. And so
earn the respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just the people I hung out with. That's just what we did. It was, one more drug. I think anger was maybe my first drug. I can get physically high from fantasizing, putting my hands on somebody,
That's the best feeling in the world.
And so high school was, things changed. So I saw that drugs were a problem, like hard drugs. And so I stuck to drinking, but I was drinking every day. You know, I was playing music. I was playing in bands, so the first time I ever got sober was for the band effort, my bass player and I, because we were putting away a case during practice. We started going to meetings together. So we would go to meetings together during the week, and then we would split apart on the weekend. You know, we would both use on the weekend, lie to each other about it on Monday. And then by Tuesday, we're like, yeah, I smoked a joint. Yeah, I drank some beer. All right. Yeah. You know, when we go to a meeting, sure, let's go to a meeting. So we'd go to a meeting. So I had a little stint and a little attempt at sobriety.
Do you think it planted the seed then? Do you think you kind of
definitely
knew that
planted
that's
a
where you needed to
seed,
go?
but I certainly didn't know it at the time. I'm pretty thick. Like, I used to ask for signs, and I got signs, like glaring signs. And so, like, the first real big sign I got during that period, I was going to a meeting in Bothell, and during this time, my best friend and two other friends were missing. They were murdered over a bad coke deal. We didn't know it at the time. They were just missing on the lake, and they'd been searching the lake for weeks trying to find their bodies. And I was at a meeting, bawling my eyes out, talking about how the divers weren't doing their job. And this, you know, and all this stuff, and a guy came up to me after the meeting, and it was one of the divers, right? And I decided that day that it was time to stop going to meetings.
What did he say to you? What did he say to you?
He just said, "Hey, I just want, you know, I just may freak you out a little bit, but I'm one of the guys searching for you. I just want you to know that we're doing the best we can. We're dragging. We want to find them as much as you do, and all this stuff, but." But that freaked me out, and so I was like, I can't go to meetings anymore. You know, that's weird, right? Instead of seeing it as a sign of why I should stay, I saw it as a sign of why I should stop going.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. I managed to put together a little bit of sobriety, and then when I graduated alternative school, my band played a party, and so I had a little slip, but it only lasted like 12 or 13 years. So. So I also managed to get two women pregnant in school. I had another issue further back in the story, sexual trauma, survivor of incest and rape, and which created a lot of behaviors as a child, as a young adult. And so I was very promiscuous, and had two women pregnant in high school who were engaged to other people. I had, neither one of them knew if it was mine, kind of a thing. And I think the first time I tried being an adult, when things, when the test came back and it was obvious that they were my children, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do this adult thing. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to move this one in with my parents, I would try to work, but on my days off, it was like, it was like a guaranteed, like, I had little periods where I was able to moderate, right? But
able to function.
But it just didn't last long.
Yeah.
It just didn't last long. So she moved out, and I would get my kids on the weekends. I moved into a party house with some friends. And tried keeping a job for a while. And when my son was about 3, he was run over by a car, and in a coma at the hospital. And I remember I lost my shit. I had grabbed his lifeless hand, and just couldn't deal with that at all. Yeah.
And how old are you at this point?
I was 21, 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been out of high school for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of high school for a little bit.
Okay.
And when he, they had him out of the coma, and I didn't like the way one of the male nurses was handling him one night, and I threatened him, and got kicked out of the hospital because I had been sleeping at the hospital just on the couches and stuff. My work had collected some money for me to help me with bills and stuff, and to maybe get a car and stuff like that. And I went to the bar that night, got blacked out, drunk, stole a taxi cab, and drove it back to the to the hospital, snuck back in the hospital, and thought I was a hero, right? Because I did all this for my son, kind of stuff. It's the kind of thinking that I had, and something changed during that time because my drinking really took a turn. I mean, it took a straight dive down, right? And what happened? So I'd moved out of the house. Had moved out of this party house, and my parents were going through divorce, and it wasn't long. Like, I lost my job. I was living in my car. It was me and my drum set, and another homeless buddy of mine, in my car. And I had started back into the drug dealing again. I sold drugs most of my life. Yeah. And just back out there selling cocaine and all that kind of stuff, and found myself where all the bars were calling me on the east side, telling me, hey, the cops were just in here with your picture, looking for you.
The stolen taxi?
No, that was long before that. No, they knew who I was.
Okay, because you're dealing drugs.
Yep. Yeah. No, they knew who I was. I was involved in a high-speed car chase where somebody died, where a cop's son died. And I wasn't driving, but really the whole thing happened because I was a drug dealer,
and sorry, I want to just make sure, did your son survive that?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Okay.
He did.
Sorry, I was like, that seems like
he was in a wheelchair for a while. And then, and he's good now.
Good.
So the cops were going around with my picture, and I decided it was time to stop selling cocaine. And I, changed areas, and I started selling meth.
Smart business.
Decision. I tried getting a job, and I got a job again, and then mostly just to pay my child support, and then I was selling drugs to try to, catch up, because I like to take shortcuts, and which don't ever work.
And were you? I think you mentioned this in kind of our interview prep. Were you also involved in a gang?
No, I was in a gang fight. So we used to in high school. I had my ear cut off in a gang fight. We had our little bad kid hangout area, and this was at a time when the Crips and the Bloods were coming up from California, and BGD and folks and stuff. And so there was a lot of them coming up, and it was just they wanted our area.
Yeah.
And so we would get in these fights all the time, and I got my. While high on acid and drunk, I got my ear cut off. I've actually lost a body part while high on acid. I had lots of friends who thought they did, but so just the top was cut off, the rest was hanging. But So
sorry to that backtrack. So trying to get a job, you had moved areas, started selling meth. Trying to get another job.
Got back into the selling meth, and then into the manufacturing process of the meth and all that stuff. And again,
and you're still playing music this whole time?
No, I had stopped playing music. My arms kind of quit working. I had carpal tunnel and tendonitis, broken bones that I just from fighting that I just drank through and never got treated and stuff like that. And so holding on to sticks was a chore.
Yep.
I think about it now, I was also pretty heavily into my addiction, so it was hard to show up for things. So that may have been more a part of it, if I think clearly now. But, and so I had that period, and then during all this time, like my son, I would make these promises like, hey, dad's coming to pick you up. It's dad and son weekend. We're gonna have a great time. And 4 days later, I would show up.
Yeah.
Because I'd get a call on the way there that some stuff to make dope would come through, and I'd have to jump on it real quick. It's just going to be a few minutes, and 4 days later I show up, and I did this to him consistently. And my daughter's mom disappeared with her, for 8 years because she knew what I was doing, you know, and she would find out, and then I would track them down, and I'd be like, no, I'm done. And it wouldn't be too long before they'd figure out, like, you're clearly not done.
Yep.
And so I didn't see my daughter for 8 years. And so this, this all kind of came to a close around 30 years old. I was already at a point where I was pretty suicidal. I'd been homeless for quite a while. I was able to find places to stay or pay for places to stay because I was a drug dealer. But hadn't had a home in years, and I was in my storage unit. My storage unit was the one place on the planet where I could go where people would leave me alone and I could feel at peace. And it was no longer providing that. And I was in there one night staring at my gun, wondering what my bullets might taste like, and just thinking about how my kids are going to be affected by this. And that night, actually, drugs saved my life because I still had dope left.
Yeah.
And I can't. I'm an addict.
Yeah, I can't leave it there.
I can't leave dope behind, and so I passed out while doing that, and I woke up to the storage unit place. People saying you can't stay here. You're not supposed to be here after hours, right?
Yeah.
So, but I no longer could find anywhere on the planet anymore where I felt peace. And I'd like to say that's when I stopped, but it was a little while later. But I found myself in the courtroom. With 8 pending felonies, weapons charges, manufacturing charges, money laundering, operating in a school bus zone. All these, I was looking at potentially, 14 to 20 years, combined with, enhancements and all that kind of stuff.
It all finally caught up to you.
Yep, all finally caught up to me. I had gone years without really getting in trouble. Plenty of jail visits, but never convictions. So the time came, and I told myself this is how I'm finally done with the lifestyle, because I had tried to stop selling drugs for a long time.
Yeah,
I just couldn't. I didn't know how to even stop selling drugs, let alone doing them. So I said, this is how I'm going to be done. This is how I quit the business, and so I made a deal. I pled guilty. I asked the judge if I could go to treatment, and he said yes, in prison. Yeah, I meant instead of going to prison.
Yeah.
So I got to do, I got to do half my sentence inside, half my sentence outside. It's called a DOSA sentence here in Washington, a drug offender sentencing alternative. And so I did half my time inside, half outside for going to treatment in there and jumping through all their hoops. If I screw anything up, I got to go do the rest of my time inside.
Okay.
So
you didn't do, okay. All right, I'm with you.
And so I turned myself in to do my time on my turn-in date, and felt a big clang behind me, and I had this panic and relief, the panic that the drugs are gone, and this is
this is real,
permanent decision, and relief that I didn't have to live the lie anymore, that I'm finally done. 16 hours later, I'm using and selling drugs inside prison because I don't know how to not do that when I'm given the opportunity. And so it took a while to get sober in there, but eventually I stopped using in there, and then because my sentencing depended on it.
Yeah. And that's where the 19-ish comes from.
I don't know my sober dates. I turned myself in that date, so it's not an accurate date. But I didn't know I was supposed to keep track till I got out. And people said, "What's your, DOC?" And I said 855-489. Who the fuck are you? I didn't know they meant drug of choice. And then my sober date, and I was like, I don't know.
Department of Corrections.
So, So I had no idea, so I just used that, and at this point it's as good a date as any. But so that's where the ish comes from. And for the beginning of my recovery, the only place I had to be released to in this world was my old dope house. And so I got out and stayed sober in my dope house.
Holy crap!
I don't recommend that to anybody ever.
Yeah. So did you learn anything in treatment in prison? What kind of things were you taught? What kind of things did you realize?
I don't remember a whole lot. I was pretty hazy for a while, but I had a counselor who treated me like a human being with dignity and respect, in a place where you didn't get any of that from anybody.
Yep. Well, and you hadn't experienced a lot of that in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And he opened that door for me. He's the reason I gave recovery a chance when I got out.
Nice.
Herm Ryans, I'm going to throw him out there. I got a hold of him to give him my 11-year coin, because they only hear from they only hear from the 97% that they retreat. So
I think that's
Is he still around this day?
Yeah, he was still there last time I got a hold of, but he's probably close to retirement by now.
What's it like now that you're when you gave him that coin? Were you counselor by that?
So I didn't get to give him the coin, but I got to talk to him on the phone. but I could tell he was leery, you know. Yeah. He's like, "Is this for real?" I was like, "No, man, it's serious. Like, you know, I've gone back to school and I'm sober. I think at the time I was 11 years sober and
wow.
And I'm in the field and I'm doing this, man." And he was pretty astonished.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that would be a life highlight for sure. Being able to.
Well, especially in that field, they burn out even quicker than we do out here in
Yeah.
that field, and for him to still be around was a huge deal.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, you know that more than anybody.
Corrections eat you alive, man.
Yeah.
7 years and I was done.
Yeah. So I lived in that drug using house. Everybody was getting loaded. Their kids were now getting loaded. I was threatening people's lives on a daily basis. So I would go to meetings. I would work. I'd go to meetings, and I'd go home when I absolutely had to, and lock myself in a room and hope nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
And I did that for a little while, and then I lived in an abandoned house. No electricity, no running water, and it was in an old drug house, so everybody had moved away and stuff. And they had like 5 dogs, 4 cats, a ferret, a duck. There was animal urine and feces all over the house. I had fleas. My legs were bleeding from scratching fleas, but no electricity, no running water. It was dark. I had this lantern. There was rats. It was pretty bad. And it was because I was too stubborn. People said, "Why don't you go move into a recovery house?" And I said, "Listen, I just got out of living with a bunch of sick men. I'm not trying to move back in with a bunch of sick men again." And I lived in an abandoned house for a few months. And I finally ended up moving into a recovery house, and it's the best decision I made in my early recovery.
Yeah.
Because there were days where I was barely clinging on. I wasn't doing any work in recovery. I was just showing up to meetings, and I was worse because this is still going and this is still going, and I don't know how to shut that stuff off or deal with it. So I can't handle stress, and everything stresses me out.
And how long were you in prison for?
Just one of my 2 years was inside. So.
Okay. So when did you start doing the work? Was it when you got into the sober house?
It was a little before then, because I remember my sponsor meeting me at my house. My linear memory is really bad. Yeah, I don't remember whether it was when I was 4 or when I was 30. So
fair enough.
Kind of stuff sometimes.
So let me rephrase that then. So when did things start to change? Like what kind of stuff was happening when you started to actually?
Definitely changed when I got a sponsor. I had some crusty old timers that would invite me out to coffee every week. They saw I was going to pretty people meetings in Kirkland and Bellevue, what I called pretty people meetings. Comparing my insides to everybody's outsides, people who appeared to have their shit together. And so I was going to those miserable, and I had my do-rag on and my shirt that said "fuck you, you fucking fuck" on it, and sit in the back, and I would mean mug people, so I wouldn't have to get to know anybody.
Yep.
And I want to see you wearing a do-rag.
Yeah. Well, and I had long hair then. I just recently cut the hair a couple months ago.
I saw your picture over at Bellevue.
Yeah. So these old timers they knew enough about people in recovery to know that I was the most scared guy in the room, because I was pretending to be the most tough guy in the room, and they saw past that, and they kept offering, "Hey, we're going to coffee here," and I was like, "No, I got stuff to do," which was a lie. And then I'd go home and feel sorry for myself that I had nothing to do, right?
And no friends to go get coffee with.
Right? Yeah. And I finally got miserable enough sober that I was like, if this is sobriety, I'm out. If this is all it has to offer me, I'm either going to get loaded, I'm going to destroy something, or I'm going to destroy myself. I can't do this anymore. So I'm going to take these old timers up on their offer, and if it's miserable, I may jack somebody's wallet, and I'm going back out. And I thought that I had nothing in common with these guys. They were older than me. They had cars, and they had jobs and careers and all that kind of stuff. But by sitting at the table at Sherry's eating bad food with them, I probably shouldn't throw that out, the name out there. But
that's where you were at,
right? So I found out that we had a lot in common, that our thoughts and our feelings were the same. I also found out that I have a sense of humor that's not really socially acceptable or appropriate at a family restaurant. There were a lot of awkward silent moments at the table. I had to excuse myself and go smoke a cigarette. And but they took me in and they made me feel like family, and they you know they made me feel okay, and I eventually got a sponsor who was nothing like me, who was 9 years younger than I was, had 6 months more sober than I did. He was a clean cut Catholic kid, and that guy saved my life.
Wow.
You know, and he actually later he taught me that this is a shoulder to shoulder deal. This is a shoulder-to-shoulder path that we're the same. He actually asked me to sponsor him later on. So we're the same. You know, that's how this works. And
so what made you ask him if he was so much different than you?
I didn't ask him. I actually had these old-timers consistently hinting. You know, you just got to ask somebody, right? You know they're not going to come to you, right? Yeah, you just got to ask. That's all you got to do. Oh, yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I got a guy I'm thinking of, you know.
Yeah.
Just over my head. And I finally went to a meeting that had a sponsorship coordinator, and I just said, "Listen, hook me up. I'm dying. I need somebody."
I like it.
And they hooked me up with him, and I knew him from meetings, and he's somebody who carried around with him what he talked in meetings. Yeah. He he wasn't just talking fluff in meetings. He was taking this with him everywhere, and so we started that path, and he never talked down to me. He asked me questions most of the time, you know, and he taught me how to get out of myself and do for others. And that's actually when I really took off. I kind of took the side door into the fellowship through volunteering for stuff, because I didn't look people in the eye. I was no longer drug dealer Darren or musician Darren. I was just a drug addict, a room full of drug addicts.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what my identity was. I didn't, you know, I have thoughts and feelings about myself that are atrocious, and I separate myself from everybody. So I stared at everybody's shoes. Anybody with short hair and a ball cap, I thought was the same guy. I mean, I was just that delusional early on. And but he would drag me out to coffee. He would teach me about etiquette, about being a man, about you know, a man who can cry, who can be afraid, who can not know answers to stuff, can be wrong, can own my, you know, behaviors, can leave women alone who are trying to get sober. All these things, you know, he taught me about integrity and a lot of stuff that was super important.
Yeah.
And he would laugh like I would get this little sharp street edge to my voice, and I'd hear him laughing. It's never good when you hear your sponsor laughing
in the meeting.
In a meeting,
yeah.
But you weren't telling a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd be like, what? What are you laughing at? He's like, the hell was that? It's like, well, my homie's in here from the streets, you know. I want him to think this is wimpy stuff, you know. And he's like, did somebody do that for you when you got here? No. He's like, do you want him to get what you got? Well, yeah. Then knock it off. Like, you don't have to keep your street edge, you know. You trying to keep your tough, keep your street edge, keep your, you know, all that stuff is you planning for when you relapse. You're not planning for recovery at all, because none of that stuff comes into play in recovery.
Yeah.
You're not going to forget how to throat punch the right guy, right? If you need to, but that's not going to come up in your life, and you need to start planning for something different. And so he just really, you know,
he's a wise guy.
Yeah, he was. I was surrounded by a lot of wise men. Who taught me how to love other men and trust other men and have loving relationships and to go to other men for help, right? It was huge. And I rediscovered my life again through service to other people. I had always wanted to be somebody that helped people. I just did it in negative ways because that's all I saw. I saw the people who had the dope and beat people up for other people or whatever was somebody that was a good person, right?
Yeah.
And being a man of my word in the streets and stuff was like a good thing. And so I got into service, and I just really rediscovered my life again. You know, I felt purpose for the first time, and had some sort of direction, and felt some sort of power in me again. And was looking people in the eye and was feeling a connection to other people, to my community, to all that stuff, you know, and that's really the basis of later on deciding to go back to school to do what I do now. And I fought the idea for years, you know. Yeah, and I've had a lot of crazy, ups and downs in recovery. I got engaged after about 6 years or so of sobriety. Got engaged and like moved away from my home group, from my sponsor. My last active sponsor went back out. I was barely getting to meetings. My fiance wasn't really into her program anymore, and she started losing herself mentally and had PTSD. The lid blew off and didn't go back on, and found myself back in a situation again, like with my mom, where I was on a daily suicide watch, and I would work 3 jobs because she could no longer work, because she would be going through 3 years of my emails and following me around in the car, and like severe paranoia, and I was trying to keep the house and the kids going and stuff like that, and I would come home and have to, see where she was hiding in a bush down the street or under the camper or whatever, watching cameras in the house, kind of stuff, and lost myself again in recovery. I had enough of program in me. I had a relationship with my higher power, but at that time it was mostly telling them to FO, right? And I wasn't meditating. I wasn't going to meetings.
Wasn't talking to other people in the program.
Yeah, and so when I was like 5 years sober and I was super active in my program, I've never felt more alive and more connected ever in my life.
Yep. Happy, serene.
Yeah, and then during that period, I've never felt more broken, more empty, and more disconnected ever, even in my addiction, than being 9 years sober, 8 years sober.
And a toxic relationship.
That's out of my control. I'm revisiting my own trauma from my childhood, and going to school.
Oh wow!
Yeah, full time.
And working 3
and
jobs.
getting to 4.0.
That's impressive.
I don't know how any of that happened. Like I just put all my crazy into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the manic energy into
it. Was,
yeah, totally.
It was nuts. It's kind of a blur.
That's nuts. Yeah. I mean, I don't really even like you have clearly told that your story before. That was incredibly well told. I mean, do you have any feedback, any questions?
No, I'm just over here just listening.
Yeah. The only question I really have now is kind of like, what is life like now?
Today I'm huge on self-care and balance.
Yep.
And introspection. So as a person in recovery, what I sought when I got sober was freedom, right? And freedom for me includes a total understanding of who I am, which has been lots of work doing step work. It's been lots of work, in therapy. It's been lots of work in different meditative practices and other spiritual beliefs. I don't jump on any one train of spiritual thought. I gather from all. I've got Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Native. I got all. I pull from anywhere, anything that
resonates,
helps me feel connected. Yeah. But because I do what I do, and a lot of people in our field, the career expectancy in our field is 2 years.
Yeah,
2 years. Go to school for a couple years, incur debt, and get a degree that's not really transferable to anything else, and we burn out, Sure. So I'm really big on taking care of ourselves, or people relapse, those of us who are in recovery that are in the field.
Yep.
Because they don't work their program. So I'm really big on my program being what it's always been. It's balanced into the rest of my life, and I have parts of my life where I explore new things about myself. I learn new things, hobbies, and I'm in a crusty punk club often, at least 3 times a month. I'm in a crusty punk rock club
You're a true
or at a metal
Seattleite.
show. Yeah, I'm just an old. Yeah, maybe I'm crusty. I don't know, but I'm at shows. I'm at hockey games. I travel the world now any chance I get, and that's been a huge thing. I have men in my life and women who I've known in recovery for years, for the last 16 years, that I'm closer to. That camaraderie and that brotherhood and the I got your back no matter what that I sought my entire life on the street, I found when I got sober. And I have people that love me at my ugliest and walk shoulder to shoulder with me through that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I love those guys. And I've married sponsees to their wives. I've married sponsees to their husbands, and I've married I've been to people's childbirths and funerals and, just all these things. And so I'm huge on that community. I'm huge on, trying to reconnect with my family. But the ongoing relationship that's the biggest one, that's the hardest one that's to correct, has been the one with myself,
Yeah.
And so I'm really big on fighting the 5-year-old that's driving the bus, that tells me I'm not good enough, that I don't belong, that I'm going to screw up, that everybody's going to know I'm a fraud, that all that stuff, even in this field, doing what I do, being put in positions of leadership and all these things, I'm flattered, but the first thing that happens is that little 5-year-old in my head says, they're going to be disappointed when they find out, Darren, that's, I still have to battle that. Right. Yeah.
And continue to grow and
absolutely, and be able to and talk about that stuff, and challenge those thoughts and work a program, solid program, yeah.
I couldn't say it any better myself. Do you have anything to start and take us out of here? I know I'm left a little speechless. So I read your prep questions, and I was people had told me that you had a pretty intense, crazy story, but just talking to you now, I would have never guessed, right? Because seem to be a pretty even keel, laid back, relaxed addiction counselor.
Yeah, some of that's probably brain damage.
But you just seem like a very down to earth, even keel guy. So hearing all of this, it just makes hearing. One of the things I love about being the host of this show is that I really get to appreciate people for who they are now, knowing what they've been through. Mm-hmm. So that is just astronomical, hearing your story now. So I consider myself blessed to know you and blessed to call you a coworker, and I hopefully a friend now after this, getting to know you a little bit more. Last thing I just got to say, is there anything you want to say to anybody out there that might be listening, that might be where you've been, that might be struggling, or might be thinking about getting into the addiction treatment industry, or have a family member that's struggling? Anything you want to leave us with?
I just think don't listen to the voice that tells you the negative stuff. The best of your ability. None of that stuff's ever been true. I think the biggest crime on the planet is that we feel like we're alone in the world. And I did that to myself, as it was never the truth, but it felt like that many times.
Yep.
And when we're standing in the fog, as far as I can tell, the fog goes forever, right? And then I lose hope.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter what you've done or where you've been, or what you haven't done. Anything's possible in recovery. The darkest, ugliest parts of my life that I thought would never do anything but plague me are now like a shining beacon of light for other people. I get to show them the way, and let them know that they're loved and that they're not alone, And then one of my recovery texts says that we turn our liabilities into assets, and that's how we do it.
I love it. Anything to take us out of here?
I got nothing.
No? I think you said a total of 5 words.
I felt strong at the beginning, but then he just talked, and I was...
Took the words out of your mouth. Yeah, you answered all the questions I even thought of.
Yeah, before I asked probably just kind of walked through it, and I was like, okay.
All right, guys. Thank you, Darren. Again, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
Guys, this has been No Way But North. We talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them. Thanks.
If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, please call 208-999-4064. The views and opinions expressed in No Way But North do not reflect those of North Point Recovery or any other institution or organization.